Should a man be forced into fatherhood, or should he have more equal reproductive rights? From CN8, the Comcast network, recognized with an Emmy Award for Outstanding Talk Program for the 4th consecutive year, It's Your Call starts now.
Should a man be forced to be a dad in the event of an unwanted or unintended pregnancy, or should he have the right to walk away? Should he have to pay child support for a kid he never wanted, or is that a responsibility you assume if you're having sex? Tell us what you think, because we're asking where you stand tonight on father's rights, right now on It's Your Call. Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Lynne Doyle, letting you weigh in tonight on a lawsuit that's been nicknamed Roe v. Wade for men. Men's rights activists are letting the world know they're not going to take it anymore with this lawsuit. They want to know why women get to choose if they'll have a baby, give it up for adoption, or have an abortion in the event the pregnancy was unplanned. But the question tonight, how about men? Why does the financial responsibility have to be shared by a man who might not want to be or is ready to be a father? Should paying child support be optional in these situations? Now, conversely, should a man have to lose his child because of a woman's decision to have an abortion? Should a woman be forced to carry to term if that's what the man wants? Whew, lots and lots of questions that we're asking you this hour. What do you think of this whole argument? Do you think since it takes two to tango, then forcing fatherhood is justifiable? Or should men have the right to choose not to pay for a child that was unintended? Is it time men had more of a say about their so-called reproductive rights? If you want to tell us what you think, I'm sure you do. A couple of ways that you can be interactive here. As you know, you can give me a call. It is toll-free from wherever you're watching across the country. You can also email me at cn8.tv or take my web poll there as well. As I said, I'm sure you'll have lots to say about this, but I want to hear from our panel right off the top tonight. They include Lynne Gold Bikin, a family law attorney and managing partner at the Family Law Practice Group of Wolf Block. Also back with us is Jennifer Brandt, a family law attorney and partner at the Family Law Department of Cozen O'Connor in Philadelphia. Joining us from Boston is Michael Coyne, who is an associate dean and professor of law at the Massachusetts School of Law. And rounding out our panel is Eric Spivak, who is a family lawyer at Aldefini. Not sure I have this right, and Spivak, but he'll correct it for me. Eric, thanks so much. Adinolfi, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us. I appreciate it. We're going to put Lynne Gold Bikin on the It's Your Call hot seat first tonight. Good to see you. Thank you. I'm going to give you a scenario and have you go at it. Man, woman, sex, pregnancy. Man doesn't want it, woman does. What rights should the man have?
He should have thought of that before he had unprotected sex. My feeling is, pants off, point and shoot, you might hit something, your problem.
Jennifer, your response to that?
I disagree. I think he should have the right to say, I don't want this child, I'm not going to pay support. And you know what, Lynn, I think it's better for the woman, actually. She knows up front what she's getting into. He's not going to pay support. If I make the decision to have this child, I'm going to be responsible for it.
So you're actually saying that that's a conversation people should have before they engage in sexual activity?
I think so. They talk about disease. They talk about everything else. Why not talk about that as well?
All right, Michael, join in here. Tell us what you think.
Well, Lynn, the problem with that idea is that there's an awful lot of children then that won't receive the vital support that they need. If a father is going to abdicate his financial responsibility to that child, then it's going to fall on taxpayers in general to try and pick up that slack. And that's not right either. The father has a choice. The choice is to take contraceptive measures at the outset. Once he or she doesn't take responsibility at that point, then they both have the financial responsibility to raise that child. And it shouldn't be borne by taxpayers or other citizens.
Well, wait a second. But, Professor, I disagree. Obviously, there has to be some carving out of some kind of balancing test for men. I mean, obviously, in this particular case in Michigan, Lynn, the allegation is that the girlfriend tricked or told the boyfriend that she could not have children. They engaged in sex. I believe the baby was 8 months old. He's now in court wanting to not pay child support. And the question becomes, why should he pay child support when he was tricked into fatherhood?
And every single case where there is unmarried couple have children, he's going to say she tricked me. You know, we've litigated that case, Serpico in New York. he tried to say that. If you don't want to have a baby, you know where the rubbers are. They're on the back counter in the drugstore.
Well, wait a second. Wait,
Yeah,
that's not fair. That's not fair.
I actually think, and when we talk about child support too, do you know how difficult it is to get child support from men? I mean, you have to chase them down. There's these deadbeat dads. They don't want to pay. They quit their jobs. They do everything to make it so hard. This way, a woman knows up front, I'm not getting that support. I'll look for other means to support this child.
It's really tough getting a word in edgewise with three very talented women at the table here. But the bottom line is, from a male perspective, you have to take a look at this. If somebody is tricked, which is the allegation here in Michigan, why should that person be responsible for 18 years, depending upon state law, to pay for a child that he didn't want, nor was an issue when they were dating?
What's his responsibility in this?
Well,
what's his responsibility? If you don't want to have a baby, you use methods to prevent it.
Yeah,
These guys say, it doesn't feel as good, I don't want to wear rubber. Well, too darn bad.
Well, I don't blame you for that.
But doesn't the woman have a responsibility as well? I mean, the woman needs to think about that as well.
But Jennifer, how do you know he was tricked? I mean, that's his story now.
Well, of course. Of course.
And listen, if you want to have the Lawyers Relief Act, you just say, okay, we're going to do this. Every single guy is now going to say, I didn't plan to have this baby.
No.
I didn't even want one of my life.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. I mean, how do you prove that someone was tricked at the point of conception? I mean, that sounds like it would be pretty difficult to prove one way or the other.
It would, Lynn. Obviously, you've got a he said, she said version of the events. But even if we examine closely the case in Michigan that we're discussing tonight, he alleges, she said that she was infertile, but she was still taking birth control measures. We all know that there is no foolproof birth control measure. Once he voluntarily participates in sexual activity, and our mothers were right, you can have a child if you sleep with a woman, and he must recognize that that's his responsibility. And his responsibility is through the year 18, and in some states, beyond that for college as well.
Yeah, but here the woman has the choice now. She can choose to have the child, to put it up for adoption, or to abort the child. The man has no choice.
Really?
So
Women have choices to abort? Have you checked
Absolutely.
out South Dakota recently, where you can't have an abortion even if you've been raped?
Well,
and all across the country, we have this whole anti-abortion movement, including our own president. They're trying to make sure that women cannot have that choice.
But this law actually presupposes that a woman has a right to abortion. So it actually puts men on the side saying, yeah, women should have that choice.
Why don't men have a responsibility to wear rubber?
It actually helps the pro-choice movement.
Ladies, you're making a distinction here. The distinction is, if somebody is tricked, whether it be the female or the male, shouldn't there be some kind of balancing test under some rational circumstances? And this is something we talked about in our pre-production meeting. Suppose, hypothetically, that during Al Bundy is in Kansas and he's in college, and he gets drunk and he's at a sorority, and women
raped. He gets raped by the women.
Get raped by women. Now, baby is born. Should he have to pay child support for 18 years because he was raped?
Would you like to pay the child support instead? Who should pay? He's the daddy. Isn't that supposed to be wonderful to have this blessed event?
No, wait a
Yeah,
second.
but you know what? He's not only giving up the right to pay child support, he's giving up the right to see that child.
Why?
So that's why when you say, well, there's going to be every man out there is going to give up their right to
Jennifer, how many times have you had a woman come to you and say, we had sex, I have a baby, now I want support?
Yeah, and the
Do you
man
say, well, you
usually
shouldn't
comes-
have it because
The
he
man
didn't want the
usually
baby?
comes and says, I want custody. There are plenty of women out there that would be happy if the man just disappeared and didn't even go
That's
after
very
the
true.
custody.
Michael, could we go back to Eric's scenario for a
you.
second and get an answer to that? Let's say that there was, as unlikely as most people might think that might happen, a guy gets drunk, a woman has sex with him, the end result is a pregnancy. Is he accountable?
If he has sex voluntarily while drunk, the answer is yes, I think. If you take Eric's example and say that he was raped, so that there was no voluntary sexual activity, you may have the rare situation where a court would suggest that there is no financial obligation. But it always starts with a voluntary act.
Lynne, I disagree.
Eric, we can say it's trick. We can say that there were lies.
There was a case.
But Eric, let me just
Professor,
finish,
there was a
please.
case.
Eric, please.
There was a case locally that you have to.
Eric, can I just finish,
go ahead,
please?
Sure, Professor, go.
We can all say that it was trick, but the fact is, men and women lie about sex all the time. I'm going to call you in the morning. I'll love you tomorrow.
You were my first.
The fact is that we all have to take a greater level of personal responsibility. And as a man, as a father of 2 sons, you tell them that if they sleep with a woman, that that responsibility can last a lifetime.
Okay.
They have that obligation to do that as men.
Recent case in this area where a female teacher had sexual relations with a student, okay, and and I believe there was a child born of that relationship. I believe the boy was 16 years old. Now, let's play this out. It just so happened in that case that after she was in jail and he became of majority, that they ended up getting married. But what would have happened if she had a baby to term and they broke up? Would he then be obligated to pay child support?
Yes, he would.
That's
Yes.
ridiculous.
Yes, he would.
No, it's not at
That's
all.
ridiculous.
He
It's not
shouldn't have to. He
ridiculous.
should have the option to say,
Why should he have the
no.
option?
Because a woman has an option. So why
You know
can't a
what?
man have an option?
You
Then
cannot
both
waive
people are
child
educated.
support. You know this as well as anybody. You
That's-
cannot waive child support.
Well, there
so
should
you
be-
can't say to the guy, if we have a baby, you don't have to pay, because the state comes in and says, excuse me, your genes, her genes, you both pay.
But,
But
wait a
Lynn, in
second.
this
But wait
case,
a
answer this
second.
question, Lynn. Wait. In this case, where you have a teacher who had sexual relations with a student who was 16 years old, and I believe the teacher was in her 20s or early 30s. Are you telling me that this student, if the teacher had a child, should pay child support for 18 years? Is that your position?
Actually, she did have a child. She had 2 of them by the same guy.
No.
We did that show.
I understand
and
that.
by the way, it seems to me that you can tell if it's sex. This is cable, right? You can tell if it's voluntary if he can get an erection and have a baby. That was voluntary. He enjoyed it, didn't he?
But wait a second. Let's turn the facts around, Lynn. Let's pretend that it was a male teacher and a female student under the age of 16.
Yes.
Difference?
She's the one that's carrying the baby for 9 months, so I think it's different.
Okay, so there's a difference between
And if she gave the baby to him and said, I didn't want that baby, so I shouldn't have any obligation, would you say that if she hands the baby over to him, she didn't have any obligation to help support? I wouldn't agree with that either.
Well,
In
Don't you-
these cases,
You have to draw the
what we're
distinction.
talking about is a short period of time. They are giving them an opt-out period before the fetus is viable. So everyone's sort of on the same page here. The woman knows up front he's not going to support the baby. Then I have my decision to make. I
Willing
can
to have an abortion? What if you don't believe in abortion?
Well, then you can put it up for adoption if you can't afford
So
to.
you should be a baby machine for 9 months because this guy's too cheap to reach into his pocket for $50 a week to pay for his kid?
You're just as responsible, though. You had sex. I mean, you're
They both
involved
had
in
sex,
this. You're
but
involved
remember
in this. So
something.
you have to take some responsibility for your actions,
absolutely.
too.
Lynn,
Maybe
there's
you
a
need to
case
know
in New
up front.
Jersey, Linda, that I think you'll find very interesting. I argued a case in the Supreme Court in New Jersey. It's the frozen embryo case. And in that case, my client, a male, wanted to be a father. The New Jersey Supreme Court said, and Mr. Katz was on the other side, I spoke to him today, he says, a court cannot force a person to be a parent against their will. Now, that was reversed, I mean, in terms of the reverse facts. So is it different because we have the male and the female? There's a constitutional issue here.
Well,
Go ahead,
It is
Mike.
different. It is different because in your surrogacy arrangement with the embryos and the like, there has been what we call procreative conduct. Someone at some point has decided to make a baby. Just like your 16 or 18-year-old man who goes and sleeps with a woman, he at that point has engaged in what the courts call procreative conduct. He has decided, whether he knows it or not, to bear the risk of making a baby. And then he's going to have to support that child. The case in Michigan actually points out a real big problem with some of the logic here, is it's a taxpayer who ends up bearing the cost, and that's why Michigan itself filed suit there to try and recover the monies that they are paying on behalf of the child that the father has abdicated his responsibility to pay.
On that note, I have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll continue our conversation here. It's a new twist on an old story. We're talking about pregnancy, but not so much a woman's rights during pregnancy, but this time a man. Should men be forced to be fathers if there's an unintended pregnancy? Are they responsible for that child no matter what? Or should they have a choice? I don't care which side of this issue you're on, it makes you take pause before you have sex. If it's not, it should. We're going to take your calls in just a moment. You can email me or take our web poll, which tonight is asking, should men have the right to choose abortion or fatherhood? Log on to cn8.tv. Tell us what you think. More importantly, though, stick around for 3 minutes because telephone calls are coming up next.
Hi, my name is Paul. You're watching It's Your Call with Lynne Doyle.
They help contribute to the child coming into the world, so they should have to pay for his existence, his or her existence.
The fact is he has a kid, so he should be responsible and take care of it. You know, that's the bottom line. Whether he wanted it or not, you know, it's there now, so He has to do what he has to do.
I totally stand on his side. There's no way that you could even have a case against that because he clearly told her that he had no wanting of having a child.
For the right of the child, I mean, it is your child, so I think he would have to pay for it.
That's the opinion of some of the folks around our region when we ask what the father's rights should be when it comes to pregnancy. Let's say that a woman is pregnant. She has a right to make a choice. Does she want to carry that pregnancy to full term? Does she want to give up the child? Does she want to have an abortion? But where does the man come into this argument? That's what we're focusing on this hour. We want to know what you think the father's rights should be. Should he be forced to become a dad if that's not what he wants? Should he be held accountable for child support? And in some cases, if he wants the child but the woman wants to abort it, does he have any right to say, hey, you have to carry it full term? All of those questions coming up as we continue here on It's Your Call. Let's take our first call tonight. It comes from Natasha. Hi, Natasha. What do you think of all of that?
I am torn because I think in a way a man does have a right as the father, but us as women, we spend 9 months carrying that baby. We go through the emotions. We go through everything. And we're the ones in the end that have to say, okay, what's in the best interest?
Okay, so let's say you decide that it's in the best interest to go ahead and have the child, and the guy says, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted. Why should I be, forced to stick around?
Then my question to him would be, well, then you should have made the decision to wear a condom.
But I think you have to look at where this comes into play. It's not the father saying, no, I'm not going to pay child support after the child is born. It's early in the pregnancy. This particular case that we're discussing, is dealing with early in the pregnancy when mom and dad both have an ability to make a choice whether to carry this to term.
Holding a woman down and forcing her to have an abortion because this guy doesn't want to have a baby?
And this is not, you can't compare those issues. This is a different issue. This is allowing each person to make a choice. Now, father is not imposing his will. No, he's not. He's not imposing his will. He's saying, I don't want to be a father. He's saying, I don't want to be a father, therefore I'm not going to pay support, and I'm not going to see that child. And so should have the woman.
There has to be a balancing test. Look, we're talking about the extremes. What this case is all about is not whether or not a father has to pay child support in a consensual relationship. What we're talking about is, let's put this all in perspective because you're both need to be going towards the middle.
Consensual sex.
No, it was not. His allegation in this case, and we don't know if it's true or not, that's correct, because there's been no fact finding. His allegation is she said she was sterile. He then, based upon reliance, had sexual relations, and it turned out that she wasn't, and there's an 8-month-old child.
So now we have the suggestion that he didn't have any responsibility. It was clearly consensual sex. I mean, she didn't drag him into bed and say, have sex with him.
I think what they're saying is that you both have responsibility. It's not that he just has the responsibility to take contraception or to wear a rubber, as you say. But what about the woman?
What about the child?
What about the child?
What if the child isn't born yet? This is up to the woman now. The woman can make that decision.
That's not the question.
All right, Natasha, what would you do in this situation? Do you think it should be a case-by-case situation?
No, because my father, I'll use my father as an example. I've never met my father. And he made a decision to have a relation with my mother and then up and decides, well, I don't want this baby, so I'm going to leave. I'm 26 years old, never met the man a day in my life, but he went on to father 8 other children.
Oh, my.
And decided, well, I don't want this kid. Bye.
Natasha, but wait. Different facts, and I think everybody here on the panel would agree that that father should pay child support. What we're talking about is that was consensual. What if back 26 years ago it wasn't consensual, or somehow he was forced into having relations, or didn't know, or trickery?
What if he just told your mom up front that I'm not going to pay support, that I do not want to be a father?
Why didn't he wear a condom?
Well, why didn't mom think about this beforehand?
Maybe mom truly believed she was sterile and didn't have to.
So the burden's on the male always to have the protection? Is that what you're saying?
I'll tell you, if I had sons, I'd be saying, check it out. Check out those pills.
Exactly.
Check out the reproductive measure, whatever you're doing.
I mean, they both decide to have sex. You have to, and there's always a risk if you're having sex. Contraception can fail. There is always a risk.
Michael?
But that is right, Jennifer. There's always the risk, and I wonder where the question of personal responsibility comes in. We want these men to have choices after the fact, But they did have a choice. They had a choice as to whether to sleep with this person, and they did, knowing that there was a certain risk that pregnancy would ensue.
Right, but
I don't think it's fair to say that then they should have the right to dictate whether that child is carried to term or not. It's a deeply personal choice, and to force that choice on the woman at the risk of no support.
Wait a second. When you say after the fact, I mean, we're talking at about a time when they both can make the same choice. A woman can decide whether or not she wants to be a mom, and Dad should be able to decide whether he wants to be a dad.
Dad already
Have
decided
sex,
that.
Not after.
Dad decided that exactly.
why?
Dad
Why does
decided that when he had
But
sex.
why does Mom get that choice
Because
after?
she's the one that carries the baby. She's the one that you'd have to hold down
They're
to
both
force her to have an
choosing
abortion.
parenthood.
No.
Yes,
Or give
they
the
are.
child up for adoption.
Absolutely.
Excuse me.
Give the child up for adoption.
So she
then.
should carry the baby for 9 months?
If she can't
If
afford
she
to
doesn't
support,
want to have an abortion
You
and
go,
she doesn't
girl.
want the
You go.
child,
That's
then
right.
that's what she should do.
That's
She
right.
doesn't say she doesn't want the child. She wants the child. She doesn't feel that no matter how much money she makes, he shouldn't have to kick in something.
Lynn, you know as well. Wait a second. Let me finish my
Suppose you're
point, Eric.
tricked. Suppose the guy is tricked.
I know. We're not supposed to.
No, this is good.
Wear
Suppose
a
he was
rubber.
No. Suppose he was
You know
tricked.
what? You are
Okay, but
sending my boss into heart spasms. We got that point.
I know you're saying it too.
Can we just...
Let me go back to the telephone lines for just a second. Natasha, thanks very much. I appreciate your call. Our next call is from Chris. Let's get a man's perspective on this.
Thank you, Lynn.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Phew.
Interesting conversation.
My goodness, is it hot in here? Tell me what you think. Should you be forced to support a child if it was something you did not want or you did not intend to happen?
Well, I may have a different perspective, but I believe that all children are gifts from God. And so if it is a gift from God, you have to take responsibility for your actions. And I actually went through that. So I believe this. Other people said that you have to take responsibility for your actions before you get to that point. The only thing that I would add is that if, say, the woman wanted to have an abortion and, say, the man didn't believe in abortion and he wanted to have the baby,
right?
I feel he should have his say
I'm
in
glad
that as well, because the burden's always put on the woman.
Right.
And the man doesn't seem to have any choice at all
I'm
in
glad
that
you
opinion.
mentioned that.
I don't think that that's fair. And yet the other thing that I'll add right in there as well is that I know people with child support. My father is an attorney, and in certain situations he can get stuck with this huge child support case, and that child support money isn't being used properly. And I think there should be some accountability.
That is a different issue, but
agree
I'm glad you mentioned the one about if a woman wanted to terminate a pregnancy and the man doesn't, because we're going to be talking about that in our second half hour. So if anyone has an opinion on that, you might want to start calling or emailing us now. Chris, thanks a lot. I appreciate your call on that. We also have a great web question for you at cn8.tv tonight as well. We're asking if a man should be forced into parenthood or if he should be forced to accept the idea of terminating a pregnancy. Michael, how often has the spotlight actually been on men's rights? This seems like it's something new to talk about a man's reproductive rights.
This is actually a new issue, Lynn, but all the cases, and I think while we can disagree about what the policy should be, I think all the panelists would agree. There isn't any court in the country that has ever said that a man does not have to support a child that he's fathered. So we're talking about policy arguments as to whether the law should be changed, because every court says that if you father that child, then you're going to support that child for an extended period of time.
Okay. On that note, I have to take a break, guys. When we come back, more conversation here. We're going to take more of your telephone calls as well. Our next question, as I just put it, should men have more reproductive rights? Would it be okay to give those who don't want a pregnancy the option to choose whether they pay child support or not? Or do we have too many deadbeat dads already? We're going to hear from Debbie and Cindy and Yvonne, and of course you on the other side. Stay with us.
It's Your Call wants to hear from you. Email the show to tell us what you think of any of our topics. Just log on to cn8.tv. Next, go to CN8 Programs and select It's Your Call. Then select Email the Show on the left of the page. Once you've sent us your email, tune in for a chance to hear your opinion read live on the air. You're watching It's Your Call with Lynn Doyle.
Whose reproductive rights should take precedence when it comes to an unwanted pregnancy? Should men have more of a say about what happens in that situation, or is it totally up to the woman since it's her body? All questions we're getting your thoughts on tonight as we begin our second half hour of It's Your Call. I'm Lynne Doyle. Thank you for rejoining us. I find this to be absolutely fascinating. On one hand, you can see that if a woman has to carry a pregnancy, that she should have the right or, the decision. Some people think that as to what happens. But now others are saying, wait a minute, if a man's involved, he should have a say as well. Should he be able to force her to either carry the pregnancy to term or to have an abortion? Or can he just have the option to opt out? All of that we're going to talk about in the next half hour. If you'd like to join in, go ahead and give us a call, email us, or take our web poll. Let's check in. We're asking that question. The numbers so far, 65% of you say yes, men should have the right to choose an abortion or fatherhood. 35% say no. It's a non-scientific survey, but just another way for you to tell us what you think. I'm going to go back to the telephone lines where Cindy is standing by. Hi, Cindy. It's your call.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay.
What do you think about this?
I think that by the time we're 13 that we all know where babies come from and that we should make a decision right then to visit a doctor because but for a man, a woman cannot conceive. And there's too many women ending up dead from these cowardly men that don't want to step up to the plate and be fathers. Back to the 80s with the Stewart case.
Right.
And LaToya and Lacey, and the list goes on and on. But yes, I think that to just nip it in the bud when we're teenagers if we decide we don't want children.
All right, now I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer here for a second because I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
You say at 13 we're supposed to know where babies come from. Let's say a woman actually takes steps to avoid a pregnancy and she still becomes pregnant. We all know that that occasionally happens. What happens then? I mean, if she wants to carry the baby, should she force the man to stay involved?
Well, I think she has a choice, and he should have the same choice. I mean, that's what it's really about, is each of them having choices. A woman will have greater autonomy if she knows if she makes that reasoned choice that this is what I'm going to do. He may opt out, but I still want to have this child, and I want to raise this child. And you know what? She won't have to deal with him in the future either. So in some ways, it makes it a lot easier for her.
So, Michael, on that same scenario, when the woman took precautions and did everything to be responsible and she still ended up pregnant, what's his responsibility?
He has the responsibility to financially support that child. And if he doesn't, then it's going to be the taxpayers who do. And the fact is, we shouldn't have to support that activity. And it's nice to say that the mother can choose, and if she voluntarily chooses to go forward and give birth to that child, then it's her burden. But that's not the great number of these cases, is the mothers are without the resources to raise these children properly.
But you know what's a shame in this case? The shame in this case is and when you say deadbeat dad, can we say deadbeat parent?
No.
Because yes, yes,
primarily dads.
But so what? But there are mothers who pay child support, and increasingly in numbers, especially in my state of New Jersey, there are a tremendous amount of men who have joint custody, with their mom, with their wife, and they have sole custody. So let's try to balance this out. But the fundamental issue is this, as my friend Al always says, is suppose this case didn't come about. It's really a shame because men's rights, and the group that obviously started this lawsuit, wants to advocate more connections with children. And here we have this father who says he doesn't want to have a connection. I just hope it doesn't turn that movement, back 20 years. That's a shame.
It certainly gives credence to those who are advocating abstinence, because if you practiced abstinence, you wouldn't have to do this.
But,
I didn't know that. I don't think I ever knew that.
But we've been talking about something else, which is she can give away the child. And the fact is that if a woman does not want the baby and wants to give it up for adoption, the father still has the right to say, no, I want that baby. And she cannot give up the baby for adoption without his permission.
But
so
she
he has
can have
control.
an abortion without his permission.
She can, absolutely right. Still her
and so
body.
if she does it without his knowledge, then she's deprived a man who wants a child of that
but even
child.
with his knowledge, even if it's with his knowledge, he cannot stop it. And the fact is, she's still the one that gets the varicose veins and the swollen belly and all that other stuff. And remember something
But
else.
she also gets
Jennifer,
that. She also gets that child. She also gets that precious child. And you know what? That's a gift. That is a gift to have the child.
But it's a gift to both of them because the
but
fact
maybe
is
the man
his genes
doesn't
are in
want it. So why force it upon him? If he doesn't want to be a parent, then let him
I won't say it again, but he should have abstained.
Oh, go ahead. It's a whole new half.
He should have abstained, then get married and have your children.
Think of these
You don't have to get married to have
She
children.
could abstain as well.
What
She
happens
could
if she
abstain
thought
the same
that
way.
she really was sterile? She really thought. I mean, you're assuming that she tricked him, but her position may be. As a practical matter, I thought I was sterile. I didn't think I could get
But in
pregnant.
this period of time, before the fetus is viable, and that's what they're talking about in this case, they both have a choice to make. They both have a choice, and they both should have a choice to make.
And she chooses not to.
Right now, the guy, he doesn't have that choice.
Suppose she gets pregnant from a sperm donor. Should the person who donated sperm pay child support?
That's another show.
Same issue.
Please, I don't have enough time.
No, because they waive the right under those circumstances.
I think,
Same issue.
I know Lynn wants to take a call, but
I want to go back to Cindy. Cindy, do you have anything else to add?
Yes. What if the father changes his mind and pretends like he's all for the pregnancy and everything, and then say in the 8th month he meets another woman?
under these facts,
and then he
he's on
shoots her in
the
the
hook.
stomach like that Stewart guy or like
He's on the
Lacey's
hook.
husband.
He's going to be on the
There's
hook.
men like that too. They claim they want the baby and then they get cowardly, and then what do you do?
He's on the hook.
Well, he's on the
I
hook.
think
If they're married, he's on the hook.
And
If
then
he
you're
wants the
dead.
child, he's on the hook. It's just in these cases where it's unintended.
impregnates her, he's on the hook. That's the law.
She's not on the
Thanks
hook,
a lot,
so why
Cindy.
should he be?
She's got to support the child.
She's not on the hook, though. She can make the decision to abort the child if she wants to. So she has a choice to make.
In America, in 2006, everybody gets the right to have an abortion, right? Come on.
Except maybe in South Dakota.
Let's change gears just for a moment. If you're on the line and you want to talk about this whole idea of whether a father should have to stay or be responsible, that's fine. I'm going to stay on that topic, but I'm just going to add a new twist to it now. Let's twist this around. Let's say a couple gets together, they have sex, a pregnancy results, and the woman says, no way, no how, this is not in my plans, I don't want to do this. And the guy says, hey, yeah, this may be my only shot. I thought I was sterile. This may be my only shot to be a dad. Should the woman then be forced to carry that child to term? I'm going to put you guys on the hot seat this time and
I have an answer for that.
I have an answer for that,
in
too,
New Jersey.
because
We have an answer for that.
All right, let me start with Jen.
Okay.
That's what the situation it's the reverse situation right now, because the woman can put the man in that position and say, this is the child, and you're going to be responsible for it.
But what if she doesn't want the child?
If she doesn't want the child and he does,
because
does he have rights?
No, he shouldn't have the right to force her to have that child. They both should have the ability to make the choice.
But Lynn, in New Jersey, in New Jersey, in 2001, when I litigated this frozen embryo case, this exact issue came up. And the bottom line is, in that particular case, my client could not procreate. My client could procreate, but if he couldn't procreate, the Supreme Court case says now there's a balancing test whether or not these frozen embryos can be implanted, because there's no other way he can become a father.
But he wanted to implant them in another woman, and that was really obscene.
Well, no, it's not obscene. It's not obscene because
her baby go in some other woman, his new girlfriend? I don't think so.
No, that's another subject. Michael, what do
Same
you
principle,
think?
though.
What do you think about the scenario that I laid out? If a guy wants the child and the woman doesn't, whose rights should prevail?
Philosophically, the man should get a say in it, but it's only philosophically, because legally you cannot enforce those rights that you want to give to the men. The courts of equity, which is where one would look for, or a probate court, have never been able to enforce these types of what you would call personal services contracts. The reason is because they're too difficult to try and enforce them, because you're asking someone, in essence, to become a slave for a period of time for certain specific acts.
But
It's just not practical. It's not practical.
At the same time, though, legally, isn't that child, that fetus, whatever your term is for it, doesn't it belong 50% to the father?
No,
I mean,
not
isn't she the...
Not until the child is...
Well, she has possession, but he contributed.
Not until he did contribute, and he was vital to its conception. But until the child is born, he does not have the rights of the father that you would want to give.
Law, Professor, is that what you're saying?
I'm not trying to say. I'm trying to recognize what the law is, Eric.
Yeah,
the law says that it is a deeply personal choice that belongs to the woman and the woman alone. And the fact is, you cannot have a court try to enforce the type of agreements that you people want to try and suggest the court should recognize. It just wouldn't work.
We people?
You people on that side.
It's a scary thought, because let's assume that we give the right to the man. He can now say, well, as long as you're growing my baby, I don't want you to eat meat.
That's right, Lynn.
I don't want you to smoke. I don't want you to drink. I want you to go to sleep at 10 o'clock at night. She's a baby-making slave. That is obscene too.
The argument that you made earlier, because you're saying to the man, well, you know what, you're going to have to work, and you're going to have to pay the bills, and you're going to have
pay the bills. He has to contribute a percentage of his income.
You're
telling me he wasn't going to work for the...
He's on the hook.
You bet he is for 18 years.
You know, he has an earning capacity. He has to keep that up. He can't. Maybe he wants to decide to do something else.
You mean this guy wasn't going to work? All he wanted to do was go around.
Maybe he wants to travel the world. Maybe he's not ready to be a father. Shouldn't he have that choice?
Maybe he's a really bad person who shouldn't be having children.
You know what? He does have a choice.
I've got about 5 different shows out of this.
We're getting off point. We're getting off point because I think we are a little bit. The bottom line is not so much in these consensual situations. I think what we're talking about is where a man feels duped. A man feels, they go to a bar, they have a relationship, he's tricked.
Sex.
But suppose it wasn't consensual.
But it was consensual.
Suppose it wasn't.
But even if it
wasn't consensual on whose part, his or hers?
But even if it was consensual, shouldn't they both have a choice?
No.
And that's the question that we're asking. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. If you're on the line, please be patient. I'll come to you as quickly as I can. If you want to join in, email me at cn8.tv.
That's your responsibility. If you create a child, I feel like you have to be responsible for the child.
Should pay child support. Definitely should pay child support, man. I can't respect a man who can't take care of his children, whether you're with a woman or not. Like, it's just not right.
If a guy doesn't want a kid, no matter what, don't rely on somebody else's words. They might not necessarily be honest. So take some responsibility upon yourself.
Talking about father's rights here on this edition of It's Your Call, but with a different twist. What if a woman is having a child that man didn't want any part of, and what if that man said that right up front, like, hey, listen, are you taken care of? I don't want you to get pregnant. What if she gets pregnant anyway? Is he responsible? A lot of debate going on here, but we're most interested in what you have to say. Yvonne has called us from Richmond, and you're next up on the line. Hi, Yvonne. How are you?
Fine, and you?
I'm good. What do you think about that question that I just posed? Is a man responsible regardless?
I feel both are responsible.
Mm-hmm.
If you get together, you consummate a relationship, you both need to take responsibility for your actions. It's not going to be left just on one.
Mm-hmm.
If you practice abstinence in the first place, you wouldn't have this problem. It doesn't come down to birth control because it's not always foolproof. I know that because I'm a nurse. I see unwanted children. I see the backlashes of women getting pregnant, young men not wanting it, or he wanting it. Shaken baby syndrome. It's horrible what you see out there from babies born into unwanted relationships and marriages. And the biggest loser is the child.
That's a great point.
I feel both should take responsibility for that action because that child is the one that suffers in the end when the parents can't get themselves together and get it right.
Great point, Yvonne. Thanks so much. It was worth the wait, I hope, to be on the air. I think everybody should come with a little tattoo. Use of this equipment may result in pregnancy.
Exactly right.
Dev, you had a very good point, and I think that kind of brings back our entire conversation. On this panel, we have great attorneys, and the bottom line is we all agree with that. But what we're talking about is not the normal situation. We're talking about the case out of bounds. For example, should fatherhood be a trap? That's the whole basis of this case.
But you can't be entrapped if you take responsibility for your actions. And if you're going to have unprotected sex, you run a risk. And that's the point.
Doesn't the woman have some responsibility? Doesn't the woman have some responsibility to have a dialogue beforehand and know who she's getting involved with and know that this person
these two people fall
maybe
into
wants
bed
to be
in
a father?
lust. And she says,
she takes a risk, and he takes a risk.
You know what?
That's what happens.
So she gets stuck for 9 months. He's off there having sex with 15 other women, and then he comes back and says, I don't want to have a baby with you, but I might want to have a baby over here.
But she can still have sex in the 9 months.
Exactly. I mean, she could be having sex as well.
But she's already pregnant, and the fact is she's carrying a baby.
She doesn't have to worry about being
varicose.
pregnant again, I guess, right?
The fact is, if you don't want to have a baby, take precautions. That's the bottom line.
And I mean, it's similarly for the woman, like I said, you need to know who you're getting involved with. If you know the man doesn't want to be a father, then don't try to have a baby with him.
If we could go back there in time and see if he said to her, before we have sex, I just want you to know I don't want to have a baby, I bet that conversation never happened.
Well, maybe she told him, you know, did she ever think, maybe, what if a woman says to a man, you know, if we have sex, I plan, and I get pregnant, I'm going to abort the child.
I bet they don't have that conversation.
Well, they should. They really should. And that's what this is all about, is talking about it beforehand.
How do we know unless we have a tape recorder in the bedroom?
Well, that's what we said. It was a he said, she said situation. How many of you out there have been involved in that? Tell us your story. I'm going to check in with our It's Your Call mailbag, because a lot of people who were unable to get through on the telephone lines have emailed us, including Mark. He writes, what about the rights of the child? That's exactly what Yvonne was saying before. Both parties must be held accountable for their actions for the sake of the life of that child. Brenda also agrees it's about the child, at least financially. She writes, if the man doesn't want to be a father, then he can terminate his custody rights. It doesn't mean he has no financial responsibility, though, to that child. Now, Anderson believes that men should have more options. He writes, women get a second chance after conception, so why is it that a man cannot have that same option? If women can opt out, men should be able to do so as well. Michael, what's your reaction to that?
Men don't have the right to abdicate their responsibilities in this regard. It's a matter of personal responsibility, and once they choose to sleep with someone, then they ought to expect that for a long period of time they're going to financially support that child.
Well, we could talk about this, though, in theory, but in practice it's a whole different story.
Have you ever been on a college campus?
Go down, wait, let me just finish.
When
you go down to the family courts and you see what goes on in the child support cases, I mean, women are spending half their lives chasing men down for support. At least this way, they know up front they're not getting the money. They know they can look for other means.
And then they have to take time off to have the baby, and then they have 6 weeks or 8 weeks where they're not making any money. Then they've got to get child support.
But you're not looking at the real practice. This makes it easier. And talking about taxpayers, what about all the jobs, all these people that are chasing down deadbeat dads? You know, President
moms.
You know, President Bush says, "Oh, we'll take away their license. We'll take away their business license." Well, then they can't drive, and then they can't work. And so, are you getting money from that? Are you getting anything from that?
That is the law, and it does work actually. The collection rate when you do take away licenses and you do something like that or threaten incarceration, whether it be a male or a female, we should not draw that distinction.
I was going to say, this is another topic altogether. Michael, jump in for me.
These women are chasing their child support because they need it to support these children. They're not doing it because it's an activity that they enjoy doing. Anyone who's ever been in family court trying to help get child support for any woman is going to tell you that it's not something they enjoy doing.
But all the time, effort, and money that's put into that, they could put into the child instead.
And what happens if they have their home because they have no child care? How do they make the money to feed that child? You know, we've got to focus really on where the focus ought to be, which is how are we going to take care of these children?
That's right.
And the fact is, if you make a baby, you have an obligation to kick in toward the support. It doesn't have to be 100% of your salary or even 50% of your salary. It ought to be some of your salary or some of what you make.
We all agree with that. We all agree with that.
I mean, the mom needs to think about it too.
We all agree with that. What we're talking about,
treasure, and talent.
But Lynne,
mom is contributing time and treasure and talent and money, perhaps.
Lynne, let's talk about the fringe cases. This is what this is all about. We all agree that if there's a consensual relationship and a woman has a child, the male has to pay because he played. Understand that. We're talking about the fringe cases where college campuses, perfect example. Do you know what the pregnancy rates are at a typical college campus? Pretty high. Right. Now, what happens? You have people are at a bar. They go back to an apartment. Whole bunch of ladies in a sorority, hypothetically. Male goes in, is drunk. You know, the ladies are drunk. And there's no consent on either side.
Eric, this sounds like
consent. What are you talking about?
What are you saying, Michael?
This sounds like one of Eric's fantasies because that just simply is not likely to happen.
Well,
all right,
I'm happily married. It's not one of my fantasies.
I'm not going to talk about anybody's fantasies. I'm going to go back to the telephone line and speak with Ruth. Hi, Ruth. How are you?
All right. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Very quickly, I have to take a quick break, but tell me where you stand on this issue.
First off, I want to say that it's both parties that are responsible. There's just as much deadbeat mothers as there is fathers.
Okay.
So it's not just one-sided.
But what about this particular situation? If a man, it's unwanted, unplanned, he thought she was protected, and the baby comes out, who's responsible?
Let me say this. In '72, they had a right in the state of Delaware to make a woman get her tubes tied if they thought she had too many children and weren't taking care of them. So why don't they not have the right to make the woman have the child if the husband or the man wants it and wants to take care of the child? Why still abort that child and not give that child life, which is a precious gift, because the woman wants to opt out?
All right, good question. Thanks very much for your call and for waiting. I have to take a quick break, but more thoughts coming up in just 3 minutes. Stay with us. Our last call tonight comes from Laurie. Hi, Laurie. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. What do you think? Is a guy responsible regardless?
No.
No?
No.
Why not?
Because I think it's a shared responsibility. I was brought up that you know it's your body, you take control of it, you be responsible for it, whether you're taking the birth control or not. And the options for women, there's more birth control uses. Use them responsibly. There's a lot of women that don't use the birth control responsibly, and oops, there's a mistake. The men don't have the choice. The condom is not a sure factor. The women have more choices, especially nowadays. And I'm 46, and I grew up, 25 years ago.
Right.
Women were using abortion as a form of birth control when I was in high school.
Yeah, we'll talk about that on another.
That's a whole different subject.
Right,
but
exactly.
I have two children. I have twins that are 11, and I'm teaching both of them the same thing, whether it's a boy or a girl.
Right.
It's your body. Be responsible. A 5-minute lust mistake is your responsibility.
Okay,
but
I gotta go.
If you came to the verbal agreement, I'm all for that boy. I'm the first one to sign the petition.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lori. I appreciate it. Michael, what advice would you give to people after listening to this show?
I hope everyone follows abstinence on St. Patrick's Day, Lynne. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
And Lynn, how about you?
I told my sons, and I tell every man out there, before you have sex, use protection. You can't count on the woman doing it.
All right.
I think you just have to know who you're getting involved with.
And fatherhood, Lynn, should not be a trap. That's all I have to say.
Okay, on that note, I want to thank everyone. Michael, it was great to have you back with us. I really appreciate your time here tonight.
Thanks, Lynn.
Good to see you as well. And here in the studio with me, Lynne Gold Bikin, she's an old friend of the show, and we always like to have you here. And Jennifer Brandt and Eric Spivak, thank you so much for your contributions. And of course, we always love having you here with us. If you want to tell us what you think, you can email me if you were unable to get through, or take that web poll. Let's check in very quickly and see. It hasn't shifted too much. 62% say men should have the right to choose either abortion or fatherhood. 38% say no. It's a non-scientific survey, but another way that you can tell us what you think. That's what we're all about here. There's no winners or losers here. Everybody's opinion is important. And we invite you to join us on Thursday Night Live at 9 when we're going to discuss girls going wild on spring break. Talk about pregnancy rates. Many students don't realize that when they're overindulging on spring break, they're bringing home all of those negative consequences. Pregnancies, STDs, you don't want to hear about it. Yes, you do. Stay with us.